Is it convenient to them? And how are you communicating with them? So those are all things you need to think of as part of your marketing strategy that you put into your business plan. Next is the financial strategy. Now, that's sometimes that we also do not always feel that, we don't like to talk about, but it's really important to understand that your financial strategy helps communicate how you plan to be financially successful. How are you going to make money? It talks about your current financial condition. So do I have the money to do the things that I'm thinking about, but also how I will get that money to do that. And it talks about it projects how your business will perform in the long run. And will I make money this year? Would it be 2 years before I make money? Would it be 3 years? Understanding that. There are basically 3 statements that are really, really important. There are other statements we can do, but there are 3 basic statements that you need to make sure that you complete. The first one being the balance sheet, the next one being the income statement, and the cash flow statement. We'll talk a little more about those. First, your balance sheet is just a kind of a snapshot in time, where you are at the moment. It talks about what you actually own, the things you have available, which are your assets. So they may be cash on hand, but it also mean maybe that tractor you own, it may be how much land you own. All those are assets. And also talk about liabilities, things that you owe. So maybe you still have a note on a pickup truck, or you have I borrowed money for seed and fertilizer. Those are liabilities. And so when you take the difference between your assets and your liabilities, you get the amount of equity that you have. It's a snapshot on that particular day. It may be one thing today, tomorrow it may be something totally different. So, but it is at that moment what your assets and liabilities are, your equity. The next one is your income statement. And so income statements usually take in a 1-year time period. Most people go from January to December. It's not necessarily have to. You may want to go from April back to March of the following year, but it's just usually a 1-year period. And with that income statement, it just basically tells the difference between what income you had coming in and what expenses you had in the 1-year period. And you take that and you find out if you made a profit or if you lost money with that 1-year period. So those are kind of another statement that anyone who's doing some financial backing for you want to know, did you make money, and get some ideas of it. This third one is called your cash flow statement. And so this is also something very important to not only to the people who may be lending you money, but also for you, give you an understanding of how money comes in and out of your operation. So the cash flow statement, kind of like is kind of a 1-year period, but it takes in month by month, or some of you can actually do smaller periods than that, but most people use month by month, how much money came in and how much money went out during that very month. We probably do that on a monthly basis anyway with our regular paycheck. If we're working with someone, or if we're working for someone, we know how much money we get every month. We know how much money we spend. We need to do the same thing with our business, so that we realize that some months we make a lot more money than others. There may be certain months where you're growing crops, you may not get anything. You may be, doing the winter months where you maybe not be harvesting. Then there may be times in the spring where you're harvesting a lot. So you figure out how to balance that money out over that 12-month period so that you will have money to cover your debts. So it basically shows money flowing in and money that's flowing out. We sometimes do what we call a break-even analysis. And in a break-even analysis, we're basically trying to look at what it costs us to raise a crop and what we need to be able to make off each thing that we have, so that we will be in the red and not be in the black and not in the red. So we want to know exactly what it costs to raise crop. And the only way to know that is that we actually keep very good records on what we spend each time we're doing something. It's a very useful tool to help you understand how to price the crops that you're growing, or the livestock that you're growing if you're selling it direct. Another portion that's very important on the business plan, what we call our management needs and history. Again, we talked about having a resume for our business, and that's kind of what that is at that point as well. So if you're managing your business, put in here your education, your experiences, all those things that will help someone know that you make good management decisions. Talk about who's going to be responsible for allocating money, who's going to be responsible for keeping books, who's going to be responsible for making decisions related to the operation. It's very important. Also, one of the things you can talk about, training that you had, things that you've gone through with extension, you've gone through with other universities, training that you have about your particular operation, so that people know that you're not just producing, but you're also trying to learn more. Talk a little bit about your management style. How do you manage people if you have a staff? Talk about your organization structure. So as you go along, many of us come in and we're sole proprietors, meaning we basically come in, we don't have any other protection, but as our business grows, sometimes we decide we want to become an LLC or S Corp or some other form to have some additional protections. They come with some additional paperwork as well. But as your business grows, quite often we will go from just, okay, I'm a sole proprietor, and I want to actually file some papers with the state of Texas to become another business structure. And so that's something you may want to explore later on. And lastly, talks about your financial structure, how your business operates and how to be financed, how the profits be split if you have a partner who's working with you, and how to decide on how that's going to be distributed. So it's really important to keep good records, and this is some of the things they do. They talked about how to enable you to plan effectively, evaluate performances, how to have accurate income tax returns, and how to help your lender determine credit worthiness, and which is the main portion of having this business plan. I'm going to talk about a couple of different types of software that's available to help you with that, and some checks and balances that's important. Here are two products. So Quicken and QuickBook are both some electronic softwares that you can use to keep records with. I like Quicken. To me, I can operate it a little better. I can do some manipulations with it. QuickBooks, if you're actually doing receipts that you're actually giving to the individuals who may be buying for you, it does receipts very nice. Both of them are reasonable once you get to that point where you actually try to do that. The other thing you want to think about in the business is having what we call a contingency strategy. So unfortunately, sometimes business fails. So what are you going to do? Or sometimes people change what they want to do. So it helps you tell you what you want to do in case some of these things happen. If the business decides to close, how are we going to get rid of the things we may have invested? Or we're going to give it to someone else. If we have a child who wants to come to the business, they're going to take over it. If there's two partners and one person wants to buy the other out, those are some of the things you might want to think about and put in your business plan so everyone knows how it's going to operate. Some other things you want to add to your business plan. You want to keep your own tax returns, get some ideas of what you've done in the past. Those financial statements that we talked about earlier. You want the resumes of your key, of the owner and any key employees. If you have a team of management, you make sure you have those resumes in. And if you complete programs, if you complete short courses and those kind of things, you get a certificate. Add that information to your business plan. Again, it shows that you continue to learn and continue to grow as we move along. We want to try to avoid mistakes, and that's not always easy to do. Sometimes we learn from those mistakes, but you want to make sure as you develop goals, they're not too lofty, that you want to understand, don't underestimate money or time. Sometimes you need more money, and we try to do it as cheap as possible. Cheap is not always the best route. Sometimes we need to make sure we have the money we need if you're asking for it to actually get the job done. but don't be over optimistic. I like to tell about the guy who came in, he was just a one-person operation and wanted to plant 10 acres of okra and thought he could harvest it all by himself. That's not possible. You know, you have to have labor. And so if you don't have labor to help you with it, don't plant that much. And then don't make make it too difficult. You know, this thing is meant to be nice and simple and to be read. You don't have to add a lot of words to it. Just want to put it in there and make sure that it works. So you think about it, your business plan is really important. It can help you, you know, go through a lot of information and make sure you plan it succinctly. You want to invest the time to make sure you do it and that you do it well, that you kind of think it through. And you want to get advice from individuals who can help you in the process. So contacting your county agent, feel free to contact me. It else will be glad to kind of work you through and talk you through some different parts of the business plan. But the mistake would be to fail is not to complete a plan. That is truly a mistake. Not to do the market research and talk about what you're going to do. Another mistake would be to you know, not to recognize, you know, those assumptions. If you need information, make sure you get good information. Make sure it's not useless, and don't skip steps within the process. I would say to make sure you do this at the very end. At the end of the year, take that business plan, look back over it, and think about what was your bottom line. Did you make money or not? And if not, why did you not make money? How did you communicate with the buyers? Do you need some additional resources? Do you have problems? And then always ask yourself, was it worth what I did? I think that's a question you have to ask, and no one can answer that. You maybe didn't make money, but you had something that was definitely very worth what your effort, and you're willing to try it again for another year. A couple of things that are available to you to really help you with it. There's an online program called Ag Plan. It's offered in the University of Minnesota. It's a great process, a great tool that you can actually get for free. It will help you through the process of writing the business plan. Every step that I just talked about is in there. It has examples. You can actually fill it in. Basically, go online. This is the website, or you can Google Ag Plan at University of Minnesota. It will come up. You sign up. You need an email address and a password. And you're able to go in and start the process. Also, if you want it reviewed, I am listed as a reviewer. My email address will be at the end of the presentation. If you put my email address in there, it would allow me to go in and access it, and I can review it for you. I can make comments and help you to make changes so we can actually dialogue back and forth through that process. Another resource is a free book that's available to you. It's available online. It's called Building a Sustainable Business. A lot of the information we talked about today is actually in that book. It basically follows the process of business planning from a farmer's view. And so it's available online. If you look at it, you can download it for free. It costs nothing. Also, we have a few hard copies. If you get some information, if you really need one, we can probably get some copies sent to your county office, and you can be able to pick those up. And with that, I have completed, and we're glad to answer questions either now or at the end of the presentation.
Well, Nelson, we do have a question. This is Aisha. Can you go back to the first common mistakes slide, please?
Here. Okay.
And Miss Naile, I guess she just wanted to review that.
Yeah. See, the biggest mistake we find is, of course, people think that they can do more than what you can. And so you want to make sure we kind of make sure our goals are that we have for operation can be achieved. So, having a quarter acre and saying you're going to raise 100 head of goats is not feasible. And so, believe it or not, we get those kind of questions at times. And so we want to make sure that, you think about what you can truly do on that amount of, whatever amount of acres you have or with the resource that you have. Doesn't mean we can't work towards a larger amount. Just need to go through the process to make sure that we can get it done.
Okay, thank you. And another question is, what is use of financials?
So, what are the use of financials? Basically, it's going to be for our lending agencies or a group of those who will need those to determine whether or not you can receive money, and it also will help you make decisions for the next year on whether or not you should do the same thing or should you try something different.
Okay, that's all the questions in the chat. Thank you, Nelson.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Nelson, for your presentation. We will be moving along for our next presentation. We have Julie Goetzman. She's from Brazoria in Galveston County. She's the County Executive Director with the USDA Farm Service Agency. And today she'll be having her topic on getting started with the USDA Farm Service Agency. We'll give Julie a little time to see if she can set up.
Good morning. So basically, following on the business plan of Nelson's, we are here to provide a safety net for farmers and ranchers. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull my slideshow up that I have for you. Okay. So how do we provide a safety net? That is going to be through our disaster assistance programs, our commodity price support programs, and our conservation on the program side. And then from the farm loan side, it's going to be through new operation loans, expanding loans, and even disaster loans. So you're wanting to get started with FSA. What can you do to do that? There's two different ways. One, you can go to farmers.gov. That is our newest site, especially with COVID and as not being in the office every day or different offices having different schedules depending on the COVID in their area. That is our new way of starting with FSA. However, on a normal basis, you would call your FSA office and you need to bring in proof of identity, proof that you own the farm or ranch or a lease agreement, along with if you have an entity, you're going to need the entity paperwork. So what is that going to mean? That means you're going to need your driver's license, your social security card, a copy of your deed or your lease. And then if you have an entity, you're going to need those articles of incorporation, trust documents, the partnership agreement, and the SS4, yes.
Julie, can you start, I guess, the presentation? I guess it's on the...
It's on the what?
It's on all the slides, I guess. It's not showing the individual.
Okay, it's showing on my end. I'm sorry.
Julie, do you have two screens on?
I have three,
Oh,
and I only selected the one.
Okay, no problem. So what I think maybe might work is that if you can share your screen and maybe not go into presentation mode and just try to slide down, since the three screens may interfere.
Fair enough.
Let's see if that works. Try to go to slide 2.
I'm going to end slideshow real quick and see if we can.
Okay.
Okay. You'll
Yes,
see it that way?
Yes, that'll work.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So all of our programs with FSA require you to have a highly erodible wetland provisions on file, which means it's a 1026 form, and you're certifying that you have not converted a wetland or a highly erodible land. And if you have, it's not a huge issue. A lot of times there's just a few extra precautions that we have to go through in order to be able to get you where you can actually participate with us. So be honest in filling out the 1026 form. The other thing that we have is the AGI certification. So you're certifying that you have not made over $900,000 in a 3-year average. So prime example for 2020, we'd be looking back at 2016, 2017, and 2018's AGI. And so for an average of those 3 years, you can't make over 900,000. And we have a few programs though that have exemptions where if you do make over the 900,000, then if 75% of it's from agriculture purposes, then you can still participate in the program. So it doesn't totally knock you out of the program by any means. So pretty much all of our communications is through GovDelivery. And this is just a big mass email. We're not allowed to contact just one person anymore. We have to do the whole masses, and that way everyone's included. So to sign up for GovDelivery, it is pretty simple. You can subscribe by going to fsa.usda.gov/TX on the main page, and you can get subscribed in. The other thing is you can contact your county office and they can add you to the subscriber list. For FSA texting, all you have to do is text FSA now, which is 372-669, and you would send in your county or your state and your county. So this is an example of Harris County. It's TX Harris. But if you're in Hidalgo, you would just text TX Hidalgo. All right, so how do we help with these safety net programs? Where we see most of our producers come in for the very first time is disaster programs. What hit my area really hard was in 2017, we had Hurricane Harvey. We lost a great deal of livestock. We had crops that were underwater for days at a time. And so we saw a lot of new people come in at that point. We just actually came out of a D3 drought in my county. And so there's a program that's for a drought assistance program on livestock, where if you're in a D2 drought for 8 weeks of time, or you hit a D3 or D4 drought at any point in time, we actually help pay the monthly feed costs on the livestock to help you stay in business. And so that is called the Livestock Forage Program, or also commonly known as LFP. During Harvey, I had just fence lines ripped out. We had silt and debris on our row crops. And so there is a program called ECP, which is the Emergency Conservation Program, that cost shares to help restore those practices. And so that will include the outer perimeter fences. A lot of times you'll hear, no, USDA does not do outer perimeter. ECP is the only time. Our sister agency, NRCS, has a program called EQIP that will do some of the rotational grazing cross fencing. And so that's where those are common misconceptions between the two of us. Where they can do ECP pretty much year round, we have to have a disaster declaration in order to do any type of cost share program. And that'll be through the ECP program. And then we have the Tree Assistance Program, which is called TAP. This is to help replace trees and vines after a natural disaster. And so this works really well in our plant nurseries. This is something that we've learned that can be done. And moving on, our next program is LIP, which is a Livestock Indemnity Program. So what this does is it pays on above normal mortality for livestock due to natural disasters. This past week, I've had some local rain. In fact, y'all can tell it's pretty dark behind me, right? Anyways, with that being said, we have actually had lightning strike calves. And so this will allow my producers to be able to claim any losses above normal mortality on their calves for this year. It's going to require documentation, such as maybe records from your taxes, pictures, veterinary inspections, anything that you can to document this. The more documentation you have on this, the better off you are. We had a lot of livestock die during Harvey, and we had to really get creative on documentation, but this is a very documented program. The next program we have is the Emergency Livestock Assistance Program, or commonly known as ELAP. This will pay on both livestock and bees. Where I have used it the most is where livestock have been out on a pasture, floodwaters from the Brazos River have come up really quickly, and my producers have been forced to move their livestock to another location. It'll pay for the amount of time that the livestock are off the grass. This is also in the past paid on tick fever and a couple other diseases that you see commonly down in South Texas. Also, I have a lot of hives in my area, and something that my bee producers have been fighting is the colony collapse disorder. And so this will help pay for the difference over normal mortality on the colony collapse disorder. Additionally, in some of these floods that I've seen in my area, all the hives have been washed out, and it'll actually help pay for replacing that box. It's not going to be 100%, and there is a set national rate, and that is what it pays on. So if you're a livestock producer and you're expecting to get breeding, say you're a cow-calf operations, purebred herd, you're not going to see those purebred prices. You're going to see what's the commercial prices on both live and on ELAP. Our next program that we have is NAP, which is the Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance Program. So this kind of falls into two different categories. It's once again, it is a fruit and vegetable row crop program where if you have a vegetable, say in my area, onions are not covered by a crop insurance. This will give a catastrophic insurance policy. So the basic rate starts at 50% loss, and it's $325 per crop for coverage. And then you actually have options based on your yield and acres planted to do a buy-up to increase your actual coverage level. And so if that's something that you're interested in, I would recommend contacting your local FSA office and getting your actual buy-up coverage priced out for that year. And then on the other side, we have both grazing and hay that's covered also on this. The hay grazing side, it's strict $325, or if you are a minority in agriculture, so that could be because of race, gender. This is a female conference. Yes, ladies, this means that if you sign an 860 form, you'll get the $325 basic NAP fee free. And so it covers 50% or more grazing loss for the year. Or on the hay side, once again, you can buy up additional coverage, and it'll help on the actual yields that are lost. And there is a new factor for quality as of this last farm bill. And so this is a great way to protect your crops, your livestock grazing, and your hay. Next, I'm going to kind of go into our safety net program. So these are the ones that are, because of the Farm Bill, they're here all the time. And the first one is the ARC PLC program, which is the Agriculture Risk Coverage or Price Loss Coverage. You are actually going to make a yearly selection whether you want to participate in ARC or PLC. And this is based off of historical cropland acres that were set back in the 1990s. And so there are over 20 different covered commodities on this. And what it does is, a prime example, I have a lot of upland cotton, and I know y'all do down in the valley too. It'll take the national loan rate for cotton, and if the market price falls below that national loan rate, then it'll help make the actual crop price back up to the national loan rate. And so it really helps in trying to balance your books at the end of the year. You know you're guaranteed at least X price. And it's got NAP again, which we've already just talked over, so I'm going to skip that one. The next is the Dairy Market Margin Coverage Program. So once again, it is going to help set milk at a certain price. If the market falls below that price, then it'll bring you back up to the price. I don't have any milk in my area, so I'm not even going to try to label prices for you. If that is something you're interested in, contact your local FSA office. The next is the Marketing Assistance Loan, which is referred to as a MAL. So we have quite a few of these. In a lot of instances, especially right now, if you were to harvest today, you might not want to take your crop to market. Let's face it, the prices are pretty much in the gutter at the moment. And so what this does is it gives you our national loan rate for a certain period of time, and it depends on the different crops of your time. but it will give you money to keep on operating and put your crop in storage until you can get a better marketing rate. And so this is a great way to be able to hold on, but have enough capital to keep on moving on with your day-to-day resources. We also have a farm storage facility loan program. So say you don't have an actual storage facility to take it to. I have seen hay barns, cold storage trucks, even cold storage rooms funded through this program. And so this is a 3 to 12-year loan for a max of $500,000 that'll let you go in and put a farm storage facility onto your property. And this can even be a grain bin or silo even, so that you can store until you can get to a better time in the market. Then there's the Organic Certification Cost Share Program, which is the OCCSP. And this is a combination of both state and national funding. But what it does is it helps recoup some of your prices or some of your actual cost in getting set up with organic certification. So it's a maximum of $750 per year for crops, livestock, and then wild crops and handling and state organic program fees. So basically, you're looking at getting 75% of your certification back, up to $750 a year. So those organic certifications get pretty expensive, and this is a great way to recoup some of that. One of our newest actual safety net programs that we've come out with is CFAP, or the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. And this is pretty much a whole new realm for us. This is the first time that we're running a actual program where you go online, you fill out the paperwork, and you send it to us. We don't get to see you face to face. And that's just because of the nature of COVID right now. We can't service our producers in our traditional methods. And so this is going to be an 80% payment, and it is based off of on national what crops and what species were directed hit by COVID the hardest. And so our sign-up period started on May the 26th for this program, and it's going to run until August the 28th. You have 60 days from the time that you sign to get all of your supporting documentation into the office. So what does CFAP cover? It's going to cover milk, it's going to cover livestock, and in the livestock, that is going to be hogs and cattle. It's going to cover non-specialty crops, so that is going to be your cotton, your corn, your grain sorghum, anything along those lines that are soybeans, your traditional crops. It's going to cover wool, and then it's going to cover specialty crops. Some of the specialty crops in my area that I'm seeing are pecans. However, there is a whole list on farmers.gov, and I am going to direct you heavily today to go to farmers.gov, look at the CFAP program, see if there's anything that you fit in this, and get your application into your county office immediately. So what do I need to fill out as for CFAP? Well, if I'm already established in the county office, I'm doing business every day, all I'm going to need to fill out is the 803114 form, which is the CFAP application. And I'm going to need to fill out a CCC 941, which is the average gross income form that I mentioned, that is the $900,000 limitation. If for some reason I go over that 900,000 and I want to say that 75% of my farming comes from agriculture, or from my income comes from agriculture, then I can also fill out a CCC 942 form. But I'm brand new. I've never walked through these doors. I have no clue what is going on with FSA. You can go on to farmers.gov, and it's actually got a whole list of forms that you'll need to fill out, and that'll include your 802047, which it is just our basic form. It allows us to legally put you in our system. We don't have that form on you, we can't run an application, we can't pay you. So that is very important to get into us. You'll need to fill out the 801026 form, which is highly erodible wetland form. And you'll need to fill out, if you're an entity, the CCC 901, which is going to allow the county office to generate a CCC 902, which is your farm business plan with us. It is not going to be like Nelson's farm business plan by any means. This is just capturing that you're a U.S. citizen, that you actually operate the land, that you have your capital, and your equipment and labor. It is not actually the cash flow by any means. So that gets a little confusing with a lot of people. They'll say, oh, I already have a farm business plan. No, you don't have a farm business plan. So it's a little different. And then you'll need to fill out a SF 3881, which is our direct deposit form. That way we can go ahead and deposit your money in your account and you're good to go. When you actually sign the CFAP application itself, it's a AD 3114. It will have a list of everything you need to submit for your application to be complete. And that is all going to be in Part A of that application form. It's quite nice. So I am going to stress this over and over. If you haven't written this down yet, write down farmers.gov. This is the key, especially during COVID, to get into our office, get everything set up. So get it written down if you don't have it, farmers.gov. The other sites you can look at is you can go to farmers.gov /service center locator. That'll tell you where your service center is if you don't know. And it also give you contact information to get in contact with your FSA office. And then another resource that we use a lot is fsa.usda.gov. But right now, this is going to be your main focus is the farmers.gov. Do we have any questions?
Okay, Julie, I think we have a couple of the participants requesting the slideshow.
Okay, I will try to get that to you. Hopefully it goes through. I've had some difficulties with sharing this.
Okay.
If not, let me give everyone my personal email, and I will do my best to at least get this in a PDF and out. And my personal email is julie.getzman, GOETZMAN, @usda.gov.
Also, Julie, do us a favor, and if you can, in that little chat box, go ahead and type it as well. And if your maybe a contact number that they can call. I know everybody's here from different areas, but just if there's participants from your specific area, they can go ahead and contact you.
Not a problem, and I will be glad to get them to their office too if they need help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. Any more questions for Julie?
Julie, if you could cover real quick, we have a few people who are brand new to farming and probably don't have, have never been to one of the USDA offices. What's the first step so that they can eventually at some point participate in programs?
The key is to look at the farmers.gov service center locator. Find where your service center is, who is going to actually help you. Call them, tell them that you need to set up your farm and you would like an appointment to discuss what programs that may be available. A lot of times I'll have producers call me and they go, okay, here's my operation. What do you have that you think might fit? And so I'll actually sit down and give them fact sheets and try to give them my best thoughts of where their entity may go. There's great fact sheets out there. And if you can't get help from your FSA office, contact me. I will help you. I promise. But go ahead and tell them you need to set up your farm, you need to get your farm business plan going, and that way you can actually look into different programs with them.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Julie? Let's wait a couple more seconds. Not seeing any, so we're good on time. Thank you so much, Julie. Next, we have Bertha Venegas, State Outreach Specialist with Natural Resources Conservation Service. Also joining Bertha is Samantha Salinas, Resource Team Leader for NRCS, located in the San Antonio office. Today, their topic will be available programs through NRCS. So take it away, ladies.
Good morning. I'm waiting on Aisha. Can you hear me, Megan?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. I was just waiting to see if I can share my screen,
Okay, good.
and we'll get started.
There we
Let's see. Okay. Megan, can they see my screen?
Go ahead and select from the begin. Yes, we got it. You're good.
Okay, you got it. Okay, good morning. This is Bertha, and Samantha has also joined us. We're going to talk about our agency, the Natural Resources Conservation Service. For those of you who are new and are not familiar with our agency, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, known as NRCS, provides both technical and financial assistance to farmers and ranchers and landowners. We are here in Texas, but this is an agency that's nationwide, a federal agency, and one of the 20 agencies within USDA. I also want to mention that all our information can be found on our website, and it's tx.nrcs.usda.gov. You can also go to farmers.gov to find the service center that will assist you based on where your land is located. But you can also go to contact us on our screen, and you can also get to that directory as well. So we have staff located throughout the state of Texas with approximately over 219 offices to help serve every county in the state. And here's the farmers.gov website that Julie was talking about. And I have it set on the page where it says find your local service center. And you'll see at the bottom where you can select the state and the county where you're located at, so that it can provide you information on who to contact locally to assist you. I know that Nelson talked about the business plan, and Julie talked about some of the programs that are available to assist you. So the technical portion of an RCS that can assist you is to help you develop a conservation plan. And this plan is based on your goals, and also to be able to help you identify any limitations or opportunities that are available based on the resources that you have on your land. So we help inventory those resources, and we help you analyze and talk about what are some of the things that you can maybe do with the resources that you have available to you.
Bertha, this is Samantha. I just wanted to elaborate on that slide a little bit.
Yes, go ahead.
So this is Samantha Salinas. I'm the RTL here in the San Antonio area. And a client or a customer or producer that is interested in developing a conservation plan can get with their local field office to get one developed. It's no cost, and what the local field office staff will do is they'll set up an appointment with that individual to get that information, but we'll also need to follow up with a field visit to look at infrastructure, to look at resource concerns, do evaluations, make sure there's nothing critical that's going to be disturbed, things like that, where that inventory is taking place. And honestly, these first 4 steps of developing a conservation plan are probably, they're probably the most important out of all of them, because that's where us as NRCS individuals and employees, come in and do the evaluation on what, and provide feedback on what exactly the landowner is trying to accomplish. So whether it means, efficiency and economic perspectives on their individual operations, we take all that into consideration when we evaluate alternatives, formulate them, inventory the information, and so on.
Yeah, so this is very important because we're looking at the resource concerns, and it's based on the resources that you have on your land or your property. And we're looking at soil erosion, we're looking at plant condition, we're looking at animal health, we're looking at energy, soil quality, and air quality. So if you are signed up with FSA, then, and you have a farm number, then we can provide technical and financial assistance to you. We don't necessarily have to be signed up to provide technical assistance. All our assistance is free. You can just call our office and ask questions, and we can either be able to answer those questions for you or maybe direct you to the agency that may specialize in what you are trying to do. And we might be able to put you in contact with those that agency or those individuals that can help you with that. So, but for financial assistance, you do have to have your land registered with FSA before we can proceed forward with any kind of financial contract or agreement or any type of financial program that we might have available for you. I put this up because the most common program that everyone is usually asked about is called the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. And I'm going to let Samantha maybe say a few words on this one.
Yes, Bertha. So the Environmental Quality Incentives Program is a financial assistance program that USDA and RCS provides, in which we assist the local public with establishing conservation practices on their properties and addressing those resource concerns. And so there's an application that needs to be filled out to be considered and submitted to the local office. And then if a conservation plan hasn't already been developed, that's where the local office will then coordinate a field visit with the individual to go out to the field with them, take a look at the property, conduct the evaluation, determine land eligibility, things of that nature, and what exactly their concerns are, whether it be erosion or plant productivity or animal health or lack of water. Those are items, or those are resource concerns that can be addressed by utilizing or installing practices like cross fencing and water development, planting, seasonal high tunnels, promoting soil health through cover crops. Quite a bit of things that can be done, projects that can be done under this program. And it's been offered every year. There's usually there's this initial sign up, and then there tends to be a follow-up round 2 batching sign up as well. And so currently round 1 applications had to have been submitted by April 3rd of this year, and round 2 applications had to have been submitted, I believe, by like May 15th or May 19th. And then anything after that would be batched for the 3rd round. And so I highly encourage everyone, if they're needing, that kind of assistance, whether it is financial or even technical, to contact their local field office to be able to get some technical assistance or financial assistance and evaluations done on the property.
Right here on this page, you can see on the blue tabs where we have programs, and that is the page I put on this PowerPoint. But if you can see on there that we have Farm Bill, financial assistance, and then we also have easements, landscape initiatives, and some landscape planning. So once you go into these, there are a lot of programs that we have available for landowners. It just depends on what your goals on your property are. So the first step would be to locate your local service center, find out who the individual in the office is there, and go ahead and contact them and start the planning process, or ask the questions that you need to ask so that we can provide any other technical assistance that we are able to provide you. There is quite a bit of information on our website. You can even look up the soils through the web soil survey. There's a map of the United States, and you can look at a property and it'll tell you what type of soils are there, and it will tell you some of the characteristics of that soil and what it has been used for in the past, and it'll give you some ideas of maybe some of the things that you would maybe want to grow on that land. So it has a lot of information that can help you in the planning process. And so you might want to do some research before calling the office to have some ideas of what you think you might want to do with your land. So Samantha mentioned EQIP, and you can apply for that anytime during the year, but there are some funding periods where the applications are taken into consideration if it's there. There are some initiatives for Texas, for those that are in Texas, that are listed here. And I just wanted to highlight two of the ones that Aisha asked me to highlight because of the audience that we're trying to reach today on this webinar. So there is an initiative for beginning farmers and ranchers, and also for the socially disadvantaged farmer or rancher. You can see there are others: organic, transition, strike force, Colorado River, but I wanted to focus on those two so that if you fall into this category under socially disadvantaged beginning and limited resource farmers and military veteran farmers, there is an enhancement that includes increased payment rates and advanced payments of up to 50% to purchase materials and services to implement conservation practices that are included in your EQIP contract. So if we do see that there is a program like EQIP that can help you on your operation, and you do receive a contract for EQIP, then if you fall into one of these categories, you can get up to 50% of the funds that you need to implement these conservation practices. And if you want to look at the definitions, which are also on our website, so a beginning farmer or rancher means an individual or entity who has not operated a farm or ranch, or who has operated a farm or ranch for not more than 10 consecutive years. And this would apply to all the members of an entity if your farm is registered as an entity.
Bertha, can you go back to your previous slide right quick?
Yes.
Okay, and so on the increased payment rates, those increased payment rates are per unit. So for example, if there is a beginning individual that is certifying themselves as a beginning farmer or a historically underserved participant, and they want to install a cross fence. And so the differences there are, if you've got a historically underserved participant, they get an increase per unit, like per foot. So for example, if you have someone that's been farming and ranching for a long time, they've been doing it their entire lives, and is very and is established, they may get a rate, for example, of $2 a foot to install a cross fence. And so if you have a historically underserved participant, beginning farmer, rancher, then they can self-certify under that designation and possibly get, for example, $3 to $3.50 per foot, because that's the unit, for that cross fence. And then getting into advanced payments that do offer up to 50% of the purchase materials. The stipulation with the advanced payments is that the once an application has been selected, so you've already been selected for a contract, you've signed a contract and need assistance in purchasing materials, the agency can provide up to 50% as long as the practice is completed within a 90-day period. So it's got to be very quick. And then you can go to your next slide. And when it comes to beginning farmers and ranchers for the 10 consecutive years, NRCS may request documentation to support the designation of beginning farmer ranchers, such as one year of tax records in which the individual has not filed a Schedule F. So it may be something where that there will be a possible audit process to justify the increase in the rate for that particular contract.
Now, as far as socially disadvantaged, these are the groups that fall under that category. The American Indians or Alaska Natives, Asians, Blacks or African Americans, Native Hawaiians or other Pacific Islanders, and Hispanics. And so the note there is that gender alone is not a covered group for the purposes of NRCS conservation programs. So we do not have female under here unless you're a Hispanic female or American Indian female or a female of any of these categories, then you qualify under socially disadvantaged. For the limited resource farmer or rancher, there is a tool on our website. You can just go through the self-determination tool that you see, this blue bar, you'll find it on our website, and it'll ask you for some information. And once you put that information in there, it'll determine whether you can be considered a limited resource farmer, and you can apply under that category. Aisha, I cannot see if people are asking questions, but if you want, if there are any, we can take some. I also wanted Samantha to talk a little bit about how to reach us right now during the COVID-19 pandemic and what our protocol is.
Okay, we don't have any questions just yet, so please.
Okay.
So currently with the COVID-19 pandemic, there's been some rules and regulations that have been put into place that to ensure the safety of the employees as well as the safety of the individuals that we work with. Currently, offices in some areas are operating on a rotated personnel schedule, meaning that there may be one individual working there one day, you may have another individual working there another day, things of that nature to kind of restrict interaction, things like that to stay safe. And so when it comes to the pandemic, I highly suggest that you call the local field office where your property is located, or even where your residence is, to get some information on how they are currently operating, because there is some areas in the state. So right now, of course, Texas has hit its second wave, but it may have not been affected some areas. And so you've got some rural areas that may have not had an increase in positive test results in at least 2 weeks, where they're able to accept visitors. You may have some urban areas like San Antonio that we're seeing up to 500 increases a day. And so where visitors are not allowed, especially in field offices that are operated in federal buildings. So I highly suggest that you get with that field office, give them a call and ask them what their current protocol is for visitors. They may allow visitors depending on what their status is currently, but you may be required to wear a mask. They are going to be required to wear a mask to ensure safety. USDA NRCS is encouraging our field office personnel to still meet with our clients out in the field. So we're still operating as far as we can on regular business operations. We've just got to be safe. So if you are needing assistance, our agencies can still provide that. We've just got to practice social distancing and and whatnot, and ensure that we're taking the appropriate protocols when it comes to the pandemic and keeping everybody safe.
Okay, anyone can reach me on my cell phone at this time. I have my email as well, and I have listed Samantha's number and her email as well. But you can reach me anytime if you have any question that I can help you with, or connect you to one of our employees or one of our sister agencies. That is what I'm here for as a state outreach specialist. So don't hesitate to give me a call or send me an email, and I'll do my best to assist you in whatever questions or whatever information you may need. Samantha is located in San Antonio, and she's a resource team leader in this area, so you can reach out to her as well, and she can also connect you to anyone else, anywhere else in the state. So, Megan, if there are any questions, I think we are done with our presentation unless Samantha has any other information she would like to share.
I just have one request. Can you all, both Samantha and Bertha, go ahead and type your email into the chat box as well? So that way the participants can also just go ahead and copy and paste that into their notes, and they have that for their record. I just want to make a comment that we are recording, and so we will be compressing the file, and then we'll either distribute it or put it on the university's YouTube channel, so that you have that for reference and be able to reference back at it. Is there any questions for Bertha or Samantha at this time? We'll wait a couple seconds. Okay, so if there's no questions at this time, if at a later date you may have some questions, or at a later time during this session, you can go ahead and put them in the chat box and we'll direct it to Bertha and Samantha. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here and participating. The information was very helpful. We would like to move on to our next presenter, which is our local women in agriculture, Tanya Hill, president of TM Hill Produce. Tanya?
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is having a fantastic Wednesday. I can say I've learned a ton just watching the videos and the PowerPoints that the other presenters have done. Really spoke with me. So I want to say thank y'all for sharing such wonderful information. It's super helpful, and so I appreciate that. I don't have a whole lot of, I don't have any slideshows. My presentation is just going to be me here talking about my experience, basically who I am, how I ended up in South Texas, a little bit about my background in career, and then how I started a business right before COVID-19 hit. And so that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Again, my name is Tanya Hill. I reside with my husband and my 3 children. I live in a little community in South Texas. It's Lynn, Texas. You probably will not see it on the map, but if you see Edinburgh, you just go about 20 miles north. It's a fantastic community, a huge ranch community. Everyone just kind of pulls together for each other, and we love it. We've been down in South Texas for approximately a little bit over 16 years now. My husband and I both went to the same high school and to the same college. We both attended Texas A&M University. We grew up in another small rural part of Texas, right on the Louisiana-Texas border. A lot of farming there, rice farming. They do a lot of crawfish farming now in conjunction with the rice farming. Ranching, a lot of cattle is run in that area. Pine tree harvesting, and then it's also very heavy into the oil refinery. A lot of families, made their living on commuting to Houston or Beaumont, and depending on the oil industry. So a very blue collar, great place to grow up. My husband and I both were very heavily involved in FFA. He was involved in 4-H, and so we have always had ag in our background. We've always depended on an income from that, in addition to other jobs when that wasn't always paying the bills. In ag, you just have to sometimes just pull together and do what you have to do, because you're going to have good years and you're going to have some bad years, and you just, you got to do what you have to do. After college, we moved to California. My husband got a job at a sod company out there. And I tell people that was probably the best thing that could have happened to us as a young married couple. We had just had our oldest, he's now a junior at Texas A&M. But we were out there in foreign land. We didn't know anybody. We had no family around. Our nearest family was back home. And it was a good experience. It was a tough experience for us because we just had to rely on each other. And they would harvest the sod at night because it was in the high desert. And so it was me and my son, he was probably about 1 at that time. I would go to work and he would go to daycare, and my husband would sleep, during the day because he had to work at night to run the harvest crews from the side. So it was a challenging time as a young couple, but again, I mean, the best foundation that we could have gotten as a young married couple, because we had to depend on each other. And so that was neat. We moved back to Texas. Both had a couple of jobs, and my husband was running the farm at through the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. And he got a call. He always kept in touch with one of his ag economics professor at Texas A&M. And this is talking about the Aggie network, and it's just not A&M. I mean, we have a great network of community, but I have seen through other universities, I mean, just the network that the students and the professors make. I mean, it's so important to keep in touch with those people, because you just never know when it's going to come in handy later on in life. So my husband kept very, very close contact with a professor, an ag economics professor that he had at A&M, and he let Benjamin know that he had another former student that was looking for someone to run the citrus operation in South Texas. And our background is more in row crops. You have rice, you have grain corn, milo, soybeans, things like that. We never had any real experience in specialty crops like citrus, fresh fruits and vegetables. But he got us in contact with the owner of the company, and we came down to South Texas and interviewed, and he ended up accepting the position. And so by this time, my oldest was probably about 4. And then we had just had our middle daughter, Lorelei. She was 3 months old when we moved down to South Texas. So we picked up and we moved down here. And it was definitely an adjustment for us. But it was a great adjustment. The people here are just so community oriented, and the ag community itself was so welcoming, and everyone just pitched in, and this is where we recommend you live. This is a great restaurant. I mean, it was just a great experience for us. So he went to work for a company that is no longer in existence. They did sell to a larger company that bought them, but it was at one time one of the largest citrus growing operations in Texas. And so he went to work for them to run that. And the owner of the company approached me later in the summer. My background at that point was in accounting. I would, commute to Houston, and I would have my little office, and A plus B equals C. And I was super happy with that. That was my sweet spot. I really didn't have a lot of interaction with customers or people. I just stick me in my office and leave me alone until it was time to go. And I would, my numbers were my company. I just love that. And so the owner of the company approached me, and he said, we're really interested in you coming to work for us in sales. And the company that I eventually went to work for, they did fresh citrus. So it was Texas grapefruit, Texas oranges, melons, honeydews, watermelons. We also had a very large onion growing operation. And then we did a little bit of importing from Mexico on cherry and grape tomatoes. And so I had told him, I said, I've never really wanted to do sales before. It just wasn't something that I could see myself doing. But he said, no, you'll love it. Just, come on and see how it goes. Let's just give it a go. And so my first day, he said, we're going to put you on the transportation desk. And this is a company that not only did we ship to all of the continental United States, but we also had an export program into Japan, and we had an export program into Germany and into Europe. And so logistics obviously was a huge part of their business. And he told me, he said, if you can do transportation, you can do anything. And he was exactly right. And I'll tell you guys, I felt a little silly because, you go through high school and you go through college and you have your early careers, and you think that you're this fairly educated person. And getting on the transportation desk really showed me that I didn't know the states as well as what I thought I knew the states. So that was a little bit of a change. So definitely express to your kiddos that geography is very important. You don't know when it's going to come in handy. So he put me on the transportation desk, and one of my first seasons was the onion season in the Northwest. We had a very large growing season in Ontario, Oregon, right on the Oregon-Idaho border, huge growing area for onions and potatoes. And transportation out of there was really, really tough. The onions would have to compete at sometimes with Christmas trees. And I tell you, it doesn't matter what you're shipping. If come Christmas season, when those Christmas trees start shipping out of Oregon and Idaho and Washington, I mean, nothing can compete. So, our little 50-pound bags of onions, it was tough. I mean, it was just a really, really difficult job to just get thrown into. But that's kind of what it was. It was a sink or swim situation. And eventually I just I learned it. I didn't have a choice. They said, you've got to do a good job, because if you make a mistake, it's going to cost us money. And so, that appealed to my money mind, my accounting, mind, that I needed to be very organized and really pay attention to what I was doing. And so I did that through the winter. And then 6 months later, my boss came in one day, and he put this book, just kind of dropped it on my desk. And the book was about this thick. And if you're in the produce business, you'd be familiar with the Blue Book. And basically what it is a book with everyone in the produce business, and it has their contact information and what they buy and what sort of business structure they are. And he said, well, we've promoted you to sales, and there's your customer list. And so that's how I started my sales career. Is I opened it at A, and I would just, if we weren't calling on them and they had a great rating, I would call on them, and I would cold call, and that was a little difficult, you know. And I got told no a lot until I really got into the business and got into the lingo and got a little bit more confident. But you know, that first sale that you made was just, you know, it was just, there's nothing like it. It was a rush. And so I love the industry. I love to be able to go home and talk to my husband about what happened in the office, and we had that similarity. You know, he was on the growing side of it and I was on the marketing and the selling side of it. And it was great conversations going back and forth. And I love to be in the ag industry. I love to go into the store and go, and I'd rush over to the citrus part of the produce section, and you know, the kids could tell which stickers came from the farm, and so that was very rewarding to know that we had a great part in getting that and in feeding people. I mean, it was so cool. And so we worked for that company for many years, and then they, like I had previously mentioned, they sold to a larger company out of California. And so I left that company and I went to go work for another local company here, company called Frontier Produce. Great company, ran by fantastic people. They do onion growing, local onion growing, Texas, melons as well. But one part of the aspect of the business that I didn't have was the importing of product from Mexico. And so they had a very large tropicals, import tropicals division. And when I say that, I say items like limes, mangoes, pineapples, items like that. We also had a huge chili pepper program, jalapenos, serranos, anything that you can think of in that category. So that was really neat for me to be able to start learning the import side of it. You know, I love to support local programs and eat Texas onions. I think they're the best, and Texas grapefruit's the best as well. But we have to rely on our partners down south for items that we just don't commercially grow here. And one of those items is limes. We just don't have a commercial operation here in the States. Avocados as well. We have California grows avocados, Florida grows avocados, but it just doesn't grow enough to sustain the demand from the U.S. And so working for that company, I got really, really interested and just vested in working with growers from Mexico and learning the different trends and the different ways of doing business, and just it just really interested me. And I love the tropicals. I mean, the category was fun to sell. It really was very rewarding. And so after that, I worked for a couple of other companies, managed a South Texas branch for one of the largest mango importers in the U.S. And then after that, I went to go work for another, Mexican import company here. And that was my last stop until I started my own business. And that's where I learned the avocados. I mean, the avocado deal is just a completely different animal. But every job that I went to work for, I fell in love with a new product, and it exposed me to something new that I didn't know about before. And I just became obsessive about knowing everything about the product. How is it grown? What are the seasonalities? What are the things that can go wrong with the product? Who buys them? What are the buying trends? And so, as I'm going through my career and I'm going through my product category and learning that, I'm just, in awe of the worldwide just net of agriculture and how we depend on each other to ensure a great food supply. And so that's kind of how I came to the Valley, my history of fresh produce. And so now I'm going to kind of reach on why I started my own produce company, how I started, and some of the challenges that I had. I was approached back in probably late fall of 2019 by a very large produce company out of California that wanted to open a branch here in South Texas. And they were needing someone that had been on the ground, that had relationships not only in Mexico, but also locally grown relationships here in Texas, because they wanted to also expand their domestic fresh produce program. And so they approached me about creating a business plan for them. And it's basically, you know, their warehousing needs if they created a warehouse here, helping foster the relationships of some of the local growers that I knew in the fresh veg and the melon side. And then also kind of help them navigate crossing of products here from Mexico. All of the products that we get from Mexico crosses at the Reynosa or the FAR International Bridge. And so they had a facility already on the Laredo side, but the majority of the product that's imported in Texas comes in through the FAR area, which is just south of us. And so they wanted to get a little bit stronger in that. And so I said, sure, you know, I'll help you out. We'll see where it goes. And so one night I sat down and I started creating a business plan. And when I tell you this is like a multi-billion-dollar company that came to me, you know, through a relationship that I had. One of my very good friends moved to California and got to know the owners of the company and the higher ups in the company. And when they asked her if she knew anybody, she gave them my name. And so that's, you know, the relationships that you have in this industry is just, it's invaluable. So I sat down one night and I just started writing, you know, warehouse needs, personnel needs, how much staff that they would need to run the product, the logistics between not only Laredo and here in this area, but nationwide, how we were going to consolidate the loads. And into the night, I started writing these numbers, and it was just like a light bulb that went off in my mind. Like, you know, yeah, you're writing this business plan for this other company, but why don't you just kind of start jotting down some information for yourself? And so in another notebook, I started, you know, writing some things down. And I'll tell you, I've never been the kind of person that wanted to create their own business. I'm a very, very conservative person. We have 3 children now, of course, 1 in college. And I've always wanted to know that I had a paycheck coming in to help out with the family benefits. You know, you just want that kind of stability. My husband has always pushed me to try to start my own business. He just, you know, he's seen the vision before I did. So, you know, he's awesome for that. He's great for that. But as I was writing my ideas, I mean, it was after midnight. It was between midnight and 2 o'clock probably. It just become more realistic. I thought, man, this is kind of making sense. You know, I've got over 16 years of experience in the business. I've touched every aspect of the business in one way or another. And so, you know, I just kept journaling. And over probably the next couple of weeks, I didn't say anything to anyone, not even my husband. And over the next couple of weeks, I started journaling and putting together a business plan and what it would look like. And, you know, I named it. I you know, knew what I could do in a warehouse and what I was looking for and what I could be flexible on, what I couldn't be flexible on, what products I wanted to bring in. I started doing some research. I prayed about it a lot. Faith is extremely important to me. And so through my prayers, I would ask God, you know, guide me. If this is what is the next path for me, you know, help me work through it. And so after I thought, a pretty solid plan, I sat down at the kitchen table one night and I talked to my husband about it, and I had to make sure that I was ready, because I told myself, if you speak this into existence, then it's real. Like there's no going back. It's not that you have to open it, but there's always going to be kind of like that carrot that's dangling. Like, you know, if you don't do it, there's always going to be kind of this what if situation later on in your life. And so it was just physically talking to someone about the idea was a big process for me. And after having the conversation with my husband, he was just all on board for it. He said, you know, you can do it. I know you can. You've got all this experience. You've laid out the plan. And that made me feel really good. You know, that my partner in life, someone that had been in the ag business, you know, his family grew up farming. He knows better off more than you know most, that the struggles of doing that. And he was willing to say, we'll live on one paycheck, you know, we'll make it work. You just go and you realize this dream because you can do it. He wanted it for me, and that made me feel really, really supported and really good. And so the next step that I did is I wanted to talk to someone kind of outside of course, the circle that was going to either benefit or just, you know, not benefit from it in the household. And so if you're in South Texas, and in the Lynn Seminole community, he's a mentor of mine. I just love him dearly. And he's a neighbor of mine. If you're in South Texas, I'm sure you know Mr. Carlos Guerra. We sit on a lot of community boards together. And so he was the first person outside of my circle that I wanted to talk about the program with, because he's an extremely astute businessman. And I knew that he could kind of point me in some of the directions that I needed to go. So under the guise of talking about, needing to talk about some community service activities, I went over there and started talking about that. And then a few minutes later, I said, well, you know, I want to talk to you about me starting my own business. And I was probably there for about 4 or 5 hours at the kitchen table in the office. And he asked me questions that just were very difficult, were very thought-provoking. He wanted to, you know, and for every question that he asked, I had an answer for. And so that was kind of further validation to myself that I had planned it out and that I had a good plan. And so one of the things he said, well, who's your banker? Who's your accountant? Where are you going to warehouse out of? And so we sat down and he helped me make a list of bankers to go talk to. And so that was my next step, is I knew I needed to talk to someone about laying out the business plan and making sure that it financially made sense. And so I chose a bank. I chose this bank very specifically because they're huge supporters of the agricultural youth in the Rio Grande Valley. They're always at auctions. They're always buying projects. They're always adding on to projects. They're always sponsoring something. And so I wanted to pay them back for their support. And I knew that they would understand the industry and that they would be supportive of me. And so I went in and made an appointment and sat down with Ms. Garcia at Texas National Bank. And this lady is one of the best bankers in the industry, and she is extremely smart and business-minded. And that bank services some of the largest companies in the Rio Grande Valley. And here I am going in with my little business plan. You know, it's just kind of a one-woman shop. And she treated me like she just rolled out the red carpet and said, let's see your numbers, and you're going to do this, and your plan looks great. And at that time, I was not interested in any sort of financing. I was just interested in banking and knowing what the goals were. But she laid it out, and she said, when you're ready for anything else, this is what you need to do. And guys, she treated me like I was just, you know, a multimillionaire already. And that was further, you know, validation that I knew. I thought that was a great stamp of approval from a very established banker. And then the next step I went to an accountant. I didn't know one that was business minded. I just had our little local accountant. And I didn't know one, so I called someone, one of my contacts, and he said, go to these guys. And again, it's a very large, successful accounting firm. And I walk in, and one of the head accountants brings me into a boardroom, and he gets out the whiteboard, And we go over, how do you want your business structured? And he asks a lot of the questions that that need to be asked when you start a business. And he made me explain to him why my method of thinking and why I was thinking this and why I was thinking that. And he said, "You're ready. Let's just go for it, and you can do this." And then I started calling some colleagues that I had in the business that had started their own business recently within 5 or 10 years. My age, we kept in touch with each other. We did business, do business on a daily basis. And I questioned them on what do I need to do? What do I need to be aware of? I knew the licensing and things like that I needed for the produce business, but just needed some sort of backup, on what I was going to do. And great advice. They gave me some fantastic feedback. And one of the things that they said, if you're going to have to get some extended pay terms because you are new in the business. And in produce and fresh produce, a lot of the terms are net 10, and that's set by the industry standard by our licensing. But they said if you want 30 days terms, you're going to have to talk to your suppliers and your vendors and your customers, and you're just going to have to be upfront and honest with them and tell them, hey, I need a little bit more time to pay because I am new. And he said they'll give it to you. The customer said that's not a problem. You have a good enough reputation in the business that you shouldn't have a problem. And they were exactly right. And so on March 2nd of 2020, after having all of those conversations with those people, I started my business. I opened my doors in a warehouse. I started importing limes in from Mexico underneath my name. I created a partnership with a mango supplier that I've known in the business for years and years, and I started selling mangoes. And then I started brokering some local produce as well, some onions and some melons, and I did avocados and anything that I could get my hands on to sell to my customers and make it easier for them, a one-stop shop down here in South Texas. I did, and I hustled and hustled and hustled. And then a couple of weeks later, we knew that kind of COVID, we knew that COVID was around, but at that time period, I was so naive in thinking that it was really going to affect us like it did. I was very ignorant in the results of that. And my husband told me, looking back, he said, if you would have waited 2 weeks later, he said, you would have never opened your business. Because that's kind of when things started shutting down. I think we were at Houston, the livestock show in Houston, and they made all the kids leave. And then the next week we had our local regional show, livestock show, and we had to disperse from there too. And that's when it really got weird. It got very challenging for everyone. And I've always said that the fresh produce business was resilient. It's food and liquor is the recession-proof industries, and we can't say that anymore. When the food service industry, when the restaurants shut down, and we can't track the buying trends of the customers. People would rush to the stores and they would fill up their shopping carts, and then they wouldn't go back to the stores for 2 weeks. Or the curbside services were so overwhelmed that people were just using what they could. So it was very challenging to track when people were going to buy, and so it was really, the produce business was in a little bit of a chaos there for a while. We wouldn't have any business for 2 or 3 days, and all of a sudden you would sell out within an hour. Because we were just having such a hard time tracking the buying trends. And so that was challenging because, I'm very much a data forward person. I track stuff. I look at historics for future pricings and things like that. And so that threw my organized mind out of control a little bit. So I had to learn how to go with the flow, and I had to learn how to just kind of turn on a dime and be prepared to fill an order that I needed to fill. But I attribute, just the being able to navigate the changes and everything, and really being in the ag industry, because when you look back in it, that's the best thing about it is it's always changing. There's always going to be something that's new, and it could be weather driven. It could be, just the industry itself, the commodities. I mean, it really prepared me for this business. And so I had to learn how to be very resilient. I had to learn how to make phone calls and talk to people about, well, what are you seeing and what are you hearing? And, that communication really opened up, and it was good to see that the ag industry just really pulled together in a time like this. It made it all us kind of stop and appreciate the where we were in the industry that we were in. So, that's how I was successful in starting my business. I'm almost 4 months in, and I'm still here, and it's been wonderful. I'm so happy to be able to provide fresh fruits and vegetables to the industry, and be a part of this ag industry. So it's been great.
Some great information, Tanya. There's a question in the question box. Do you offer apprenticeships?
I will be looking at that next summer. I am a one-woman shop right now because I just work on very, very, everything that I make, I put back in the business. But I am extremely excited about offering that, opening up either in the spring or in the summer. There is a program through the TIPA, Texas International Produce Association, and it's called Aggies in Bloom. And it is specifically for A&M kiddos, but they go and you apply for it. I can get that information. I think it's on Texas International Produce Association's website. But you apply for the program, and then you kind of say, what you're interested in. If you're interested in marketing, if you're interested in growing, learning about it. And they put interns into fresh produce businesses. And so it's a really, really neat program. That's specifically to A&M. But I would encourage anyone that's interested in getting into the fresh produce industry or learning about it to go to, your College of Ag and learn about it, and really get in touch with the Texas International Produce Association. They have a ton of information, and we are always looking for people to get into the industry. When I tell people I sell produce, they think, well, oh, you work in a grocery store. No, I work actually at the point that it comes in, and I distribute and I sell and I market. And it's really, really a cool industry that is life-changing, and it changes other people's lives. I mean, you make everyone healthy. Fresh fruits and vegetables are great for us. So.
Great. So one more question. Can we have you place your contact information in the chat box? Some people are requesting it, so that way they can contact you.
Absolutely.
Is there any other questions for Ms. Hill? We'll wait a couple seconds, see what comes in. Our co-presenter, Rolando, said, great job to all our presenters and hosts. Awesome story, Tanya. Wishing you your best in your business.
Thank you.
So if there's no questions at this time, we would like to thank all of our presenters for making themselves available today. We would also like to thank our participants for joining us and encouraging other women in agriculture. We want to foster and strengthen this network, and I think by today's presentations, we did an awesome job of getting a lot of great information out there. We would also like to invite you to join our next two programs of Women in Agriculture on July 8th and July 22nd. They'll both be at 10 a.m. via Zoom, just like this. And if you have any requests as far as, what you may like to see in the moderation, the comment box, the question. We can go ahead and take those suggestions in the comment box. And if there's any other questions for our presenters, you can go ahead and type those into the question box, and we'll go ahead and get them to the correct presenter. And I think that should be it. We would just like to thank you for joining us today. And we will be following up. If you requested an email of a presentation, we will be following up with that, and we will also be streaming this presentation on a YouTube channel. And we could also, depending on how we zip file it, we'll go ahead and send that out to a participant if you request it. Again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
If you are requesting a presentation, please make sure that we have your email in the chat box, so we can make sure that we can get that presentation to you.
Yes, we'll leave the presentation on, the workshop on, for a little while longer in case y'all want to add your email addresses.
Perfect.